Thanks for all those who joined, and welcome to our second webinar hosted by Colliers International. So today we will focus on the offices, and we will be presenting three presentations to you by my colleagues Olga Shishlova, Diana Labadenko. So, and the agenda will be based on, first of all, discussing the survey findings. We surveyed tenants and landlords across 3 Baltic countries. Then we will be discussing a little bit of the global trends affecting real estate in Baltics as well. And Olga will walk us through the back to office issues that are quite under consideration in the current times. So the webinar will be recorded and it will be available on Colliers International LinkedIn or in YouTube under the BRELF events channel. Also, we will be doing a questions and answers session at the end of the presentations. So we received few questions up front, and we will be taking live questions, which you can place in the chat just in Zoom as we speak. So thanks for the attention and your time, and I will ask Diana to start on the survey results.
Hello everyone, happy to join to share some of our insights from the office survey we have conducted recently. To start with, a little bit of background on the survey. In the next slide, please. So we have surveyed top decision makers in the real estate industry across the Baltic states. We had both landlord and tenant sides. Our survey respondents together hold almost 1.5 million square meters of space, either under management or occupation in the Baltic region. It could be added that the survey ran through the beginning to mid-April, therefore it is possible that some figures have slightly fluctuated, taking into account that the market is changing these days. Nevertheless, we observe that the general trends are still largely intact to this date. Next slide, please. It is safe to say that quarantine has led to the largest ever experiment of remote work in terms of its scope as well as in terms of its length. At the same time, the concept of remote working is not new. Most of our respondents had an opportunity to work remotely already before the pandemic and will have once the situation stabilizes. Of course, this will be to a different extent and frequency. In this context, it was interesting to see where does the office stand. Our findings show that professionals prefer to socialize and to collaborate with colleagues in the office environment. Given this, we expect that employees will be eager to return to offices once this is possible, taking into account not only the social context, but also all the additional infrastructure that is available within office space. Next, please. Talking about the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic had on office occupiers, only the smallest, 26% part of respondents recorded a strong negative effect. In general, a negative effect was mostly felt through a decrease in sales or revenue, a decrease in demand for products or services, as well as clients either canceling or putting on hold processes. Nevertheless, this is not the whole picture, as some of our respondents did not report any change to their business as usual, and a part of our respondents also mentioned feeling a positive influence in regard to a rising number of inquiries or new business opportunities opening to them. This is tightly connected to the fact that the Baltic market is adaptable to a changing environment, while remote working and modern technologies facilitate business continuity in these challenging times. Next, please. We had also inquired what do landlords know on their tenant plans. So most landlords indicated that no downsize plans were announced by tenants. As to expansion, 27% of landlords indicated that expansion plans were put on hold, while 18% indicated that expansion is continued. Therefore, in this case, the situation is quite varied case by case. Next, please. Another interesting question concerned rent reduction due to quarantine. Our findings show that mostly small and medium-sized enterprises tend to ask for rent reduction, while larger corporations tend to be more robust. Therefore, they ask for rent reduction to a small extent. From the landlord side, most landlords indicated that they intend to negotiate any rent discounts with each tenant individually, looking at their concrete situation, how they were affected by the pandemic. Next, please. Finally, some future expectations by the survey participants. So most of survey landlords and tenants expect the office leasing market recovery as well as business rebound until the end of 2020, which indicates a quite optimistic approach despite that the current times are still quite uncertain. We had also inquired landlords on key market indicators, and most of them expect a small decrease in rent rates as well as an increase in vacancy rates in the period of the next 12 months. So this actually wraps up my presentation. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. We also invite you to take a look at our report that we have produced on this topic. And last but not least, we'd like to take this opportunity to once again thank each of our survey participants for participating and sharing their experiences with us. So thank you, and now the floor is to my colleagues.
Thank you, Diana, very much. It was very interesting to hear, and definitely thank you to, first of all, our participants. Without you, we will not be able to share these insights. So going further down, I will highlight a few EMEA trends on the having effects on the office sector. And if we can start by overall look at the COVID situation. So Marta, could you please turn to the next slide? Thank you. So here we can see countries in the EMEA region entering different cycles of the COVID pandemic. And we definitely see that some regions like South Africa, Russia, Saudi Arabia is only starting the peak. Most Central European countries and some Nordics are already at the peak. And some positive news that Lithuania and Latvia is coming down from the peak, and we see cases leveling off. Going further on the positivity, so that we see that some strong countries and most likely future economy drivers will be Germany, Denmark, Austria, Switzerland, Czech Republic, etc. So this most likely will be a European economy strength in the future years, or at least short term, which is also good news for the Baltics because we do receive a lot of activity originating from there. If we go to the next slide, here we can see different capital cities and recorded vacancy levels at 2019 December, and two scenarios, one in slightly blue color and the other one in darker color. So first scenario is discussing absorption. Absorption, by the way, is counted on the average take-up numbers going back a couple of years. So scenario one is counted at 50% absorption of regular activity and the pipeline being implemented only in 70%. And the second scenario shows only 25% of absorption of regular activity and the pipeline reduced to 50%. So definitely very low activity for any market. So in here we can see that vacancy rates are expected to increase in Vilnius and Tallinn slightly more, and in Riga the rates are already kind of quite high up, and we don't calculate additional large impact of COVID pandemic happening. And if you look across Europe, so it's only a few markets that will see increased vacancy rates in the future. So in general, we can summarize that the three capitals of Baltics will be around 10% of vacancy in the future. So let's move on to the next slide. In here, I wanted to discuss occupiers' strategies. So there are kind of four aspects that occupiers were following before the crisis, and the potential pandemic effects on each of one of them. So basically, occupiers, of course, were always cost sensitive, and definitely there will be appearing opportunities to save on the rental costs. Definitely there will be impact of more remote working. For some companies it can mean reduced office space, yeah, this is not a kind of universal decision to all businesses, and I think Olga will talk through that a little bit more of potential other impacts on space requirements. Globally, definitely, we see that occupiers might be rethinking this current strategies and moving out of high-cost labor markets such as New York, London, etc. So this could mean more shared service business opportunities for other countries in Europe, Central Europe, or CE countries as well, Baltics. So another aspect that was noticed by our colleagues in EMEA is that clients reporting their clients, internal customers, to be more open to changes and trying more out-of-the-box solutions and considering the regions that perhaps were not being considered before. What else? Definitely tenants and landlords will be experiencing some challenges in disposing some of the asset types and locations, because we foresee that this activity will come into the place soon. So the other strategy that was very much implemented before the pandemic by the occupiers was optimization of the processes, optimization of real estate portfolios, consolidations of activities for business and for the real estate solutions. So this trend was very active in Baltics too. Definitely there will be impacts of hygienic and safety norms affecting the office layouts, and we see that globally there is a very large potential for re-evaluation of consolidations into one region, one market, or one city due to unforeseen risks and etc. And definitely occupiers will be reevaluating supply chain strategy, but this is perhaps more important to production and industrial companies. So another strategy was evolving around the experience, like employees' well-being, etc. So definitely pandemic will bring the learnings from the remote working experience. Definitely there will be more discussions around design and flexibility of the workspace solutions, but I'm not going to go into details as Olga will talk about this. And another global trend, especially in the urban centers. So the return to work will be influenced not only about office readiness for the post-COVID work, but also about the commuting solutions, the public transportation, the childcare facilities reopening, and the schools reopening, etc. So in the areas where the population is really high, there might be issues organizing these things, and that they might be preventing companies for the safe return to work. So, and first, the growth. So definitely we will see pausing of additional commitments, and in new commitments. We predict that the flexibility and the gig economy will be a future economy drivers. Though we must definitely say that for this trend to evolve, the ecosystem is needed, and for the Baltic countries, the ecosystem is not so easy to set up. This might be losing a competitive advantage in terms of the other countries, but on the other case, it also could mean that our vendors and service providers or the employees will be tendered on the longer contracts, as we simply cannot allow yet to have people working on 6 months duration and then going and finding another job easily where he can reapply the same skills. And the same, of course, goes for the real estate solutions. If the office has to be built out according to the company needs, is not so easy to relet it in our smaller markets in comparison to other European countries. So if we move to the next slide, I have summary, what will be most important, I guess. So definitely Baltics are not unique. Tenants and landlords are negotiating across the EMEA region and globally. So tenants are seeking immediate rental reductions and definitely rediscussing the new acquisitions. But we can tell that we observe that predominant trend is that landlords still trying to find the solutions that do not affect the capital value. So if the discounts are being given, they usually are not in a true sense discounts. They're usually rental deferrals with prolonged lease agreements or payments done in the same year to not affect the overall MPVs. What's happening to the new leasing activities? So we calculated and compared the results across different countries. So we can say that more or less around, with small fluctuation, around 50% of activity has been put on hold. The other 20 to 30% has been cancelled, and the other again 20 to 30% is still happening, and it's expected to be implemented by the end of this year. So what will happen for those on hold deals? So some of them will definitely go back on the drawing board, reassessing the space requirements and business strategies. Then the other trend, what's everyone is concerned, as we saw on the pandemic cycle, countries are preparing to return to the office work and definitely discussing those solutions. And one of the survey findings as well that most likely will have the influence in the future is work and life balance. So to kind of summarize that people definitely evaluated this being right during the remote work, because they are saving time on getting ready to work, saving time on commuting to office, to childcare facilities, etc. So I think that would be all on the global insights. And Then I will invite Olga to speak about the office designs and layouts and what the future office will look like, and learnings of the pandemic as well.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Diana. Good presentations, very interesting. Also for me every time. And let's turn to the workplace topic. There are lots of questions in the air. What kind of office we will need in the future? Should we even have an office? And all those questions are actually quite reasonable. So if you go to slides, Colliers International, Global Colliers performed a global work from home survey with more than 4,000 participants and respondents from all around the globe, 25 countries, 15 different industries, different sizes of organizations. The presentation of survey results is available on Colliers webpage and Colliers LinkedIn. Highly recommended to watch. I listed out just few insights from there to discuss that these may be those insights which will have the strongest impact into our office spaces in the future. So overall, participating in the giant experiment of remote work, we are actually doing good. Like 78% of respondents indicated that their productivity did not change or even increased. Meanwhile, 22% indicated that their productivity decreased. It is important to mention that correlation between experience of working from home and productivity was found. So it will be very interesting to follow up on this numbers a bit later when people will have longer experience working from home, because bigger experience, more adaptivity, and the less productivity decrease. In addition to that, people indicated that individual focused work is actually better facilitated at home. And Diana was also already mentioning this, and this is what is happening. People are answering that individual focused work at home better. In addition to that, also respondents indicated that work-life balance has improved. And this is also what Sandra you already mentioned, that this time which we are spending getting to work and getting back home is sometimes is critical for our life. And overall, most of the respondents, around 80%, told and expressed the desire to work from home at least 1 to 2 days per week after COVID-19 situation will be over. So the question, do we even need an office space, is quite reasonable, but indeed we do. And let's go through some negative experiences and let's answer on question why we need an office. So almost the let's say largest amount of respondents indicated that collaborative work still is better facilitated in the office, and that they actually miss this in-person and live collaboration, that they miss bumping into co-workings and spontaneous meetings. They miss their social life, which is also going in the office, no related conversation with colleagues and all these things. And in addition to that, they are missing the separation of work and home. And also interesting and important correlation between sense of isolation and productivity was found. So more than 60% of respondents who answered that they feel isolated working at home, in the same time, they also answered that they are experiencing productivity decrease. So based on this, we can actually conclude that work from home is here to stay, but so is the office. Office is still necessary, and it's not going anywhere. So can we move to the next slide, please? Thanks. So we actually have those clear answers why we need to return to the office and why we need the office. And it is the right time for organizations, for companies to ask themselves if their office is actually matching with those purposes, and is this office, the current one, is suitable for those purposes indicated by employees. And this is quite interesting, and it is clear that office will be challenged. That's true. And maybe the most interesting question in the air is question where to return. Shall we reduce the place, or place amount of square meters will be increased, or how office should be arranged? We would suggest to look through this to this question from different angles, and space reduction is not that obvious. For sure, remote work will be part of our work routine in the future. We have practices, we have positive experience, we will implement this into our work routine. But it doesn't really mean that we can just reduce the amount of square meters of our office. The most important thing is here is to manage the occupancy. If your remote work will not be managed, then basically we can face the situation when on Fridays office will be completely empty, and on Wednesdays it will be overcrowded. And if we will reduce the space, the situation can be even worse. So just manage your occupancy, and then this can be considered. From the other side, which is also quite important, those social distancing norms and the quality of the air, new hygiene norms. So basically, we expect that more square meters per employee will be implemented, providing higher quality, providing less dense office spaces, and providing more variety of different spaces in the office. As well, such things as more assigned work models should be considered, as those companies who, for example, are working in the offices during COVID-19 already switched to assigned models in order not to change places every few hours, or if this solution was used before. So we can expect that offices will become less flexible, at least in the shorter strategy. And another interesting insight from the surveys and from other bigger organization opinions and experiences, that actually there is a question in the air: do we even need a huge headquarter office in the city center? If people are clearly stating that focused work can be performed somewhere, maybe not at home if family is there, but closer to home, and maybe the central office can be smaller and can be used more for collaboration, for meetings, for the social life, branding and belonging of employees. And from the other hand, smaller branches of the offices of this company can be spread around the city in different neighborhoods, providing employees place where to work and do their concentrated work, but improving their work-life balance, reducing this time when they are getting to work. This is also a very interesting consideration. So what we would like to say, that space reduction because of remote work is not that obvious. Can we turn to the next slide? Thanks. So what else? Smart organizations, and those also global trend, is preparing the return strategy, and this is what companies are doing already now. They are defining who will come back to the office and why. They are challenging the density and checking the density of the office. And Colliers International published the office calculator, where every company can actually calculate how many people can be accommodated in the office while those distancing norms are enforced. And of course, companies are defining safety etiquettes. Companies are checking if the safety etiquette is actually understandable for employees. So they are trying to get feedbacks and clear answers on the questions, for example, from employees, checking that they are really in line, and then they understand those rules. And of course, companies are using this time to check and adjust their business continuity plans, and using this opportunity to stay connected and to stay truly connected to their employees, demonstrating care. Regarding office itself, density is checked, how many employees can return back at the first stage, second, and other stages, what kind of activities can be performed to increase this amount of people who can return and such a things. But we would suggest you not to focus on the design solutions, which may take a huge investments, because we all understand that this full remote work is not here forever, and social distancing rules are not here forever. But focus on the behavior rules and define in each and every moment of the working day those behavior rules, how to adopt the social distancing, not only when person is sitting next to the desk. It's maybe not so complicated, but also what is happening when employees are going to lunch? What is happening when employees are coming to work and getting back from work? Are they all in the same elevators? Are they using the same circulation patterns in the same time? All those things should be reviewed and can be reviewed. Of course, communication, hygiene, technology, there are several topics that should be reconsidered. And turning to the last slide, as I see that we are running out of time, I will be very short. So we are encouraging you to define your returning strategy right now, short-term and long-term. Assess your existing conditions, your work from home conditions, your workplace conditions. Create stage 3 entry plan. Who is coming back first and why? And we also are encouraging you to consider the best experiences and the best practices from this remote work experiment, let's say so, and implement those practices into your future work routine. Basically, the best things are balance of physical distancing and effective work, and of course, encouraging employees with personal empowerment and personal responsibility, which is very strongly related to employee engagement and, as a result, productivity of employee work. And I guess this would be all from my side. Just to very shortly conclude, 3 main observations regarding the workplace. Remote work is here to stay, but so is the office. Smart organizations are preparing their return, and we are all also suggesting and encouraging you to return to prepare your return strategy. And third one, space reduction is not that obvious and should be smartly considered from different sizes and from different aspects. Thanks. I will give the floor back to Sandra, and she can discuss also those answers which were sent by you already in registration and now into the chat. Thanks.
Thanks so much for interesting presentation. We do have some questions. We received some questions before the event, and I see some of the questions in the chat. You can place your questions there now. Now is the best time, and we encourage to do so. Majority of the questions, surprise, surprise, are evolving about the future and how we predict the future and what we see on the rental rates, etc. So yeah, if it would be so easy to see the future. But anyways, let's try to see what we can answer to those. So one of the questions was COVID-19 impact on prices of office and mixed office retail assets. And I see in the chat as well that participants are asking to identify a percentage by the end of 2020. Maybe Diana, you could take this one and try to show some light on the question.
Thank you for your questions. So talking about the prices, we can return to our survey, which indicated that most landlords expect a small decrease in rent rates for the period of the next 12 months, so a year. And from this, we can expect that there will be some correction in prices. But of course, as we do not have data, it's better not to guess and just simply, because we don't have such knowledge yet how much the quarantine will last. And it, of course, it will depend on the dynamics between supply and demand and how the market will recover and how it will go.
Thank you, Diana. The other question was about what sectors will recover faster and what slower. So I think I can take this one because we also have looked in this globally. So Marta, if you can just maybe show the next slide. Here we see the kind of sectors by exposure. Who will recover is definitely quite hard to evaluate, but we can definitely look at the impact. So we would probably reform the question of not what sectors will recover faster, but it will depend definitely whether the business, what is the business client portfolio and how much their clients are exposed. So for those companies who have clients and predominantly clients with retail and hospitality, then I think they will have definitely longer recovery periods as it will be influenced by the by this sector's recovery. In the Baltics, so far, best performing sector is GBS centers. This was shown by our survey results as well. But in the long term and future, it definitely will depend how the mother companies are performing and how this crisis will affect them and what strategies they will have to their support centers, etc. Whether it's going to be, again, very cost-saving conscious approaches, whether they will be looking into more developed talent regions, etc. So the best performing sectors anyways, it's IT and online related in the events where their client portfolio is not based with retail and hospitality business. So I think that will be that question. And then what we had, another question was a long-term picture for all presenters speaking 1, 5, and 10 years. So as it was for all presenters, maybe I'll start with you, Diana, and then would like to hear your input, Olga, too.
Yes, so probably I will start with 1 year perspective because we have this data from our survey. So most market participants expect, as mentioned, a small decrease in rent rates as well as an increase in vacancy rates. So probably there will be some corrections in the market according to these directions. Maybe my colleagues can give more insight.
Then maybe I can comment from office topic, from workplace topic. In short perspective, of course, office usage will be connected to such inputs on when we will be able to return, because still it is unclear. And how many people. So basically the staged return and current office space will not be dramatically affected. It's just about the mindset and about the strategy, how companies will actually use this current office to return people back. And in longer period of time, we really expect that office will become more alive, more interesting, more collaborative, because you know, more than 4,000 respondents all around the world, they have clearly expressed what do they miss from the office space. And of course, this opinion will be taken into consideration when organizations will be rearranging their office, while organizations will be choosing their next locations, etc., etc. So overall, we would expect that remote work will be blended with the office work, and office will become more alive and more collaborative.
Thank you, Olga. So if to add my opinion, I guess in the Baltics, we can see two approaches employed by the occupiers. So one of the approach that Olga was just mentioned, that the office will be reshifted in slightly different function that we are used to, so that it will be used more for creating employee engagement and sense of belonging, and building like kind of company cultures and into the, like team building basically. And the other approach that could be also relevant for Baltics is the cost-saving approach, because for the businesses that were affected by the crisis, of course, this will be one of the questions to solve. So going further, we have another question which was sent by participants before the webinar started. So what impact and for how long COVID-19 will have on the market values of properties? So definitely quite hard to predict this right now. What we see is that capital is still there, and we definitely see that in the pandemic situation, office and industrial sectors remains like most stable ones and most attractive ones to the investors. So we kind of believe in that going forward. But definitely it will also depend on the rental market performance, how quickly it will recover, and what strength lease agreements we can do. So I see there is more questions in the chat. Let me just check them quickly. Okay. Okay, I see there is more details asking for the rental price reductions or the discounts who are giving the landlords. Are there info percentage this regarding landlord giving discounts to tenant? We do not collect such information, and we did not ask such a question. I think the survey aim was to understand how the tenants and landlords feel, and how the landlords are dealing with the requests from the tenants. And our findings were that the majority of the landlords are discussing this case-by-case scenario, as in retail, same is applied in offices. As we can see from the graph that not all industries has been affected evenly, and definitely we saw the trend that all the tenants, well, not all, definitely cannot say that, but greater part of the occupiers went to ask for the discounts. But landlords' response to this is that they are evaluating case by case, and maybe decisions are not so fast for this reason. And the landlords definitely were conscious, waiting to see how the pandemic will evolve, waiting to see what the government support will be given, and yeah, waiting to see the overall situation before making those decisions. So I see that we are approaching our time limit. We will save those questions that were in the chat and try to answer them perhaps personally. Thank you very much everyone for your time, for joining us today. As I mentioned before, the webinar will be recorded and it will be placed on Colliers International LinkedIn platform. So please be advised that Colliers International is actually directed over Baltic market, so you see the newsfeed related only to our countries. And also it will be, of course, placed in the YouTube channel under the BRELF conference. So thank you very much for your time. We hope you find this insightful and interesting. And let's meet you on our next webinar, which will be hosted on Thursday for industrial segment. And our colleagues will be sharing insights there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.